And I'm in a particularly bad position from that point of view, because I'm on screen every night presenting a current affairs program, and I'm a so-called opinion former, and yet, as I just said, I don't think I do enough to cover diversity. My personal record is made a little bit better by the fact that I made 2 documentaries in recent years about issues to do with the Roma community in Hungary, who are basically our main diversity issue. But ironically, both of those films were commissioned by and paid for by the BBC and broadcast on BBC World and not in the Hungarian media. And I guess there are many reasons for that, and partly there are reasons to do with the situation of documentaries as a genre in Hungarian media, but also for a lot of us journalists, we just don't have the time, the energy, the money, and we don't have the motivation coming from our senior managers in the same way that that's already part of the culture in the BBC. So I'm not saying we're not doing anything. Obviously, when I'm interviewing people to do with these subjects in the studio, because that's mostly what I do, I talk to politicians in a live current affairs program, I try to ask the right questions and the ethical questions. But we're not doing enough. And as I said, there are some legitimate reasons for that, and maybe also we're just plain lazy. Also, the electronic media, especially the television news media in Hungary, has a tendency to follow print media. It's a very sad situation. We sit there in the morning meeting, we open the newspapers, we see what stories are there, and we do those stories, and we don't necessarily go out enough and try to generate original content. As I said, it's a sad situation, but I think it might also be an opportunity for NGOs to try to get their messages across and to get their issues into the mainstream media by doing some of our job. I know this sounds very unfair. It is very unfair because we're being paid to do this job, and we should do it ourselves. But I think it could work. Also, obviously, I might be very naive about some of my suggestions. I know that some of the things I'm going to talk about are type of things that already exist in other countries, and to some extent there are similar initiatives in Hungary as well. But they're all things that I, as working in the probably most prestigious current affairs program in Hungary, I'm not aware of, or I'm not aware of enough, so that means that it's not actually getting through to the media. So anyway, I'm sorry if some of this is old news to some of you. I can't talk about any other countries. I have experience in the British media and a bit of experience in the Hungarian media. So these are just the random thoughts of a superficial journalist or a one-woman brainstorm session. But I think there's a lot that could be done by NGOs that either isn't being done or not being done effectively enough. And from what I can see in Hungary, it also is because there is funding available, partly through EU agencies, that NGOs are just simply much better at channeling. So traditionally we think that NGOs are poorer than media organizations, but when it comes to this particular issue, and when it comes to the specific example of Hungary where public broadcasting is very poor indeed, I think the tables have been turned slightly, and NGOs have more funding for these sorts of things than the broadcasters do. One example that I learned from the UK, and I don't know if it exists in any other Eastern European countries, it certainly doesn't in Hungary, but I think it could help, is something called the diversity database. So what it basically is, for those of you who haven't seen it before, when I was working on Panorama for BBC, we were given this database that was basically telling us about people who had expertise in various fields that weren't necessary, not to do with their disability or gender or ethnic background or religious affiliation. They just simply happened to be disabled or black or Asian and were good economists or had an expertise in anything else. And we were encouraged that when we interview people about a wide range of subjects, we use people from the diversity database. So it's not always, as many of you were saying before, we always talk to these people when we want to talk to them about their problem. And therefore the viewers get the impression that that's all these people can do. And I have to admit that I didn't really see many of my colleagues on Panorama using this database. and maybe the situation is better in Britain since then. In Hungary we don't have anything like that, but I think that it would be of great benefit also because, again, it would be a way of doing some of our job. People always complain that when we interview experts, for instance, and we do a lot of that on my show, we always interview the same 2 or 3 people, and the viewers are getting bored. As a result, on my program, we experiment, we're trying to get new experts in, but we don't have the manpower. We can't send a researcher to go and do casting sessions for economists or political scientists or people that have expertise in a scientific field. So therefore we call the university, we ask them who's good on a particular subject, they send someone, and often I only realise when we're live on TV that this person who was great on a telephone is like a rabbit in the headlights as soon as they're sitting in the studio. So if there was a diversity database that had extra faces, quite regardless of the fact that they happen to be diverse, that would already be quite useful if it came with a video attachment. So we knew what this person was like on camera, how they can talk, what they can do. And I'm sure that offices like mine would basically use this, maybe not even realizing that they're doing this for diversity reasons. The diversity that they would be more interested in would simply be the diversity of faces. So we don't just have the same 2 experts all the time.